Welcome back to Black and Classic Podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Monet, where we talk all things politics and pop culture. Guys, this week it has been a doozy. So much has happened, and I cannot wait to sit down and discuss it with you all.
Blackness, that black power, that black pushing them to identify with black culture. I think that's what you're asking. I have no.
So, to begin, let's jump into our recap. So, I received a comment a few days ago, or actually, it was 17 hours ago. I thought it was a few days ago, at least 2 days ago, but I received this comment and I definitely thought it was a very thought out comment. I think, it was a comment that was very respectable. A lot of times when you get comments, typically not on YouTube, I will be honest. You guys know I always say TikTok, they will chew me up and spit me out. But typically on YouTube, you guys keep it pretty respectful. And this comment I did really love because, like I said, I'm all about hearing everyone's opinions. I never want to claim that I know everything or that I'm a know it all or my opinion is right. What I do is I read a headline and I just dig into what that headline means or what that headline could mean, right, for the average American. Because what I found is that people kind of let politics, right, just happen and they read the headline, they're like, okay, that took place, and they move on and they don't really understand the impacts. At least I didn't. I'll be honest. I did not understand the impact. But the more I listened to like Candace Owens, I was listening to Ben Shapiro, I was listening to, a lot of different people, Don Lemon, I was listening to just different people, Megyn Kelly, like I was listening. I even was listening to is it Tommy Lauren or Tommy? It's something like that. But like I was just listening because I wanted to know what all sides felt and I wanted to be able to have my own opinion about it, but then also talk to people, right? The average American, the average person, and say, hey, this is what's going on. Like, here's how I feel it can impact us. And let's just talk about it because the more we know, the better we are as Americans, and then the better we can impact our future as opposed to just ignoring it. So, with all that being said, I'm just gonna read this comment. It is very long. Okay. It is very long, but I just thought it was a very great comment. It was something that they didn't completely agree with what I said, but they still remained respectable. So, it's from Local the Stream, and it says Charlie was an evangelist and apologist. Martyr is quite the appropriate term. He valued his faith over anything else. JD Vance and Charlie were very close friends who went back years, which okay, well, I'll get to it later. JD Vance honored Charlie, someone who has had an undeniable impact on the world, as demonstrated by the celebration of life seen literally around the world by flying him home on Air Force Two. Trump addressed the nation because we have all seen the nation and the world were deeply impacted by this. People who didn't even know Charlie were upset by this because here is a man willing to sit down and talk to literally everyone, and he was killed. As far as the school shooting, let's be realistic. There are tiers of information and news. Charlie is known worldwide. No one except for the local community has heard of this school. Not that it isn't tragic, it's just overshadowed. As for Erica's speech, I would point to Jackie O, who stood next to Vice President Johnson in her blood-soaked clothes so they can see what they have done. Just because you don't feel like you would be able to give a speech doesn't mean she can't. I appreciate you getting into this and having an opinion. I think too many people are on the it doesn't make sense to me train. So I definitely appreciated that comment. What I will say is first up, my initial reaction, right, and my just organic reaction, saying that JD Vance and Charlie were very close friends. They go back years. What I can attribute that to is just simply the campaign run. I can be wrong. Again, I looked into it, especially because of a topic I'm going to talk about today. Um, I looked into it and I can only kind of pinpoint it back to the campaign run. I couldn't really find something that was much long, like goes beyond that. Okay. And so to me, it just felt like, um, it just felt like they are making this much bigger than what it actually is. And I think both sides do that, right? They take a person, they take an incident, and that becomes the face of their campaign. That becomes the face of their message of whatever they want to get done. That becomes the face of it. And I think that is what's happening a little bit, is that there's things that they want done, and Charlie's death became the face of that, right? So it was like we have to pull out all the stops, do all of the things, say all of the things so that his face and what he actually stood for, now we can kind of twist and it becomes our agenda. That's what it feels like to me. So, do I think he should be getting a lot of this like military type honor? No, but I understand it works for their agenda. That's just my personal opinion. I do believe that, being realistic, yes, not every shooting is going to be addressed. But like you said, when he said, not that it isn't tragic, it was just overshadowed. I think that's the tragic part, is that it gets overshadowed, right? That to me is the tragic part, because these are actual people. Like, these are actual people, and these are things that we shouldn't just disregard because you have a more important agenda that you want to push forward. And then for Erica's speech, I don't know. I don't want to, again, I don't know if it is me living in conspiracy land or me just being kind of jaded and cynical and being like, I just don't really trust the government. But I just feel as though, again, like I said, I would just be in such a state of shock that I really couldn't do that. And I think it's a little bit of an unfair comparison to compare Jackie O, like the president's wife, to Charlie Kirk's wife. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's just a little bit of an unfair comparison. I understand where you would say there are parallels, but to me, it's like that's the president, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that was the president, you know? So it's just a little bit of an unfair comparison. But again, I think it's just, we want someone as the face, and this is the person that we're going to choose, to be the face of what we want to push through and to see happen in the world. So yeah, that's kind of where I am with that. And thank you for your comment again. Thank you for a lot of the comments I receive. I do appreciate them. I try to respond to all of them, but as you guys see, like, let me tell you something. I'm not a social media girl, okay? So half the time I'm like reading comments on different platforms, trying to make sure I stay, like in the mix and responding to you guys. But like I just said, I thought that comment was 2 days ago and it was literally 17 hours ago, So I be all over the place, but I do appreciate them. If you think I don't see them, I do. And even if I respond a week late, just know I'm going to respond. I'm just trying to manage all the platforms, okay? And with that being said, we're going to jump into our local news. Now, for local news, I don't have much, to be honest. A lot of my topics are going to be headlines because, like I said, guys, a lot did happen. But the only thing that happened that was, I'm pretty sure, shocking to some and probably shocking to hear as I say it. But in Connecticut, as of October 1st, it will be illegal to marry your first cousin. I know. I know. How could this be, right? How could this be? Working in local government has taught me that a lot of people don't read a lot of things. And if you work in the corporate world, I'm sure you know a lot of people don't read a lot of things. So what happens is that could have been something that maybe someone brought up once or twice, but they were just like, look, we got bigger fish to fry. We're not going to focus on that. If they want to marry their first cousins, let them. And then it took someone to be like, actually, let's work to get that changed, okay? We're no longer just going to ignore that. And so someone came along and was like, no, I'm actually gonna look to get that changed. And they did, whether it was a new hire, whether it was someone who always just, it didn't sit right with them and they're like, no, I really need that to be changed. Whatever, they were like, let's change it, So you would think it would just happen, but there's probably so many laws and so many things going on that the little things like that, people just skip over and move on and they don't focus on it. It just takes that one person who either read it and was like, let's change it, and they just came on, or it was someone who was like, I thought about this for years and I'm just going to get it done this year. So it wasn't shocking to me. I think what was kind of funny to me, right, is that there was like a date that it would take effect. I feel like, for different changes that I've seen, whether it be contract changes or things like that, I like when they put in like, and this change will be effective the day of signing. So like once it's, signed off by who it needs to be signed off on, boom, it goes into effect. I like that. The date of October 1st kind of gave me like, well, let's just say someone does want to get married to their first cousin. Let's make sure they have time to get it done before we put this, you know, as something illegal to do. And now they can't get married to the person they love, their cousin. So that was a little bit funny to me because I'm like, you definitely can just put a little line in there and say this will be effective the day of the signing. And if it got signed 2 weeks ago, then it got signed 2 weeks ago and it's now effective immediately or effective as of, whatever, however the media wants to report it. But to put a date on it was just kind of funny. It just made me think that they were like, hopefully whoever wants to get married to a cousin could get married before the October 1st. So I don't know. That little tidbit was funny to me. But that was all I had in local news, to be honest. Not a lot has happened. I try to basically like keep an eye out on the themes that we've previously talked about or any parallels to, like the federal government, but not too much. But that one was kind of funny and interesting. So with that being said, y'all, we have got to get into these headlines. Now, I have so much I want to talk about. Of course, all of it does relate back to, in some way, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now, you guys know I'm a huge Candace Owens fan, so I'm not going to go off into what she's discussing, who did it, how it could have been done. I'm not going to go off into that land. But if you are interested in her thoughts, her theories, her investigation, I would say you definitely go out and, explore her last few episodes. They're definitely been interesting. But I'm not gonna go into that world. Like, that's just a deep dive. Like she has a personal like interest. I don't have a personal interest. So I'm not going down that rabbit hole. What I do want to discuss is, like I said, the overall agenda that feels to be what is on the horizon. So, first up, I don't know, I might be a little bit all over the place. I'm going to try to keep this streamlined, but y'all, it's just so many things. And truthfully, I'm super concerned, but I'm going to try to take it one step at a time. Okay. So JD Vance, our vice president, is well, I say is, but he did sit in for Charlie Kirk's podcast show. Now, this was interesting to me when I saw that he announced it. I don't know if it was on I don't know if it was on, I think it was his Instagram that posted it. And when I saw it, I was like, there's no way. There's no way. Right? Like, to me, again, you guys can get in the comments and let me know what you think. But to me, I just feel like a vice president has better things to do. Sue me, please. I just feel like the vice president of a country has better things to do than to host a podcast episode. I hope one day I get that big. You know what I mean? that the vice president will come and sit and host my show. I do, honestly and truly. Um, and that also goes to my point about them using him as the face. If you keep that idea in your mind, a lot of what I'm going to say this episode makes sense if you keep in your mind that they are using him as the face of whatever agenda they have planned. So he did this podcast episode. It was from the White House. I think he said it was in his office. And I did take some notes, so I'm just going to kind of run through my notes. I will be honest, I did not watch. I do believe it was 2 hours. I did not watch all 2 hours. And I didn't watch all two. I think I got maybe about 30 or so minutes in, and then I realized, oh, okay, so you're just gonna sit down with a bunch of people from outside the White House. Not like, to me, I don't know if he ever got to like his real life friends or anything like that, because again, I did not watch all 2 hours, but it just seemed like, again, they were going to sit down with people from the White House and talk about how their message and agenda is somehow intertwined with what Charlie was about, you know? And it and I feel like everyone was like rushed through their talking points. Yeah, it was not something that I was going to sit through and pretend to enjoy, you know? As much as I want to get the research for you guys, it's just some things, like it's just some BS that I'm not going to like put myself through. Like I'm just not, you know what I mean? It's kind of like when you're watching a bad movie. You're watching it, and you're like, "Oh yeah, no, this isn't going to get better." So I'm going to turn it off. You know, it's just not going to get better. If I go to a movie theater and I pay for a movie, if I'm watching it and it's bad, I'm not going to walk out. To be honest, I'm going to go to sleep. I go to a very nice movie theater, y'all. They give food, they give drinks, they got the reclining seats. Sometimes I bring a blanket. We all know movie theaters can get cold, so sometimes I bring a blanket. And if it's bad, I'm just going to take me a quick little cat nap. And then I'll wake up and I'll see where we are in the movie. And I'll just finish it, you know? But to just sit through it, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I feel like we're getting to a point where like we family, you know? And I'll be honest with y'all, I'm not going to do that. So in watching all about 30 minutes, off the bat, I felt like he was reading off a teleprompter, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing if your typical day-to-day job is to speak into the ether, right? It's just to speak to people that aren't there until you post it. You know, I wish, okay, that I could, you know, have me a teleprompter maybe one day, okay? But y'all know I always have my notes, I have my pens, I have things highlighted, I read things, I talk to you, right? Like, I get it if that's what you do. But from that comment from Local the Stream, I believe his handle was, where he said that JD Vance were friends and they go back years. To me, if my friend who I go back years with just died and I'm introducing something, I'm telling you right now, I would not need a teleprompter. I might need like key points because I'll get emotional and I might start rambling. So I need something to like keep me in line, like some bullet points or something. But word for word teleprompter, no. Because what it does is it gives no real emotion at all. At all. It felt so stale and stiff to me that I was like, is he talking about someone he knows, or is he reading the inside of a book cover? Like, you know, the little like what is that called? The little like flip jacket or whatever. Like, is that what he's reading? Like, it just felt so disingenuous, and there was no connection there for me. That's what I thought off the bat. Then around the 9-minute and 38-second mark, because I did take notes on the times, just in case if you want to run it back to say I missed something, he's describing Charlie and he goes, you know, basically Charlie was a lion and a visionary of our movement. Ding, 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 ding. See, as a quote I heard somewhere, I'm going to paraphrase, if you let people talk long enough, they will begin to tell you the truth. If you let people continually just ramble on, they will begin to tell you the truth. So he's going on and on and on. We're about almost 10 minutes in, and he says, lion and visionary of our movement. And I thought, well, damn. At least it's honest. At least it's honest. But it further solidified what I was thinking the whole time. He's the face of now your movement, and you want to intertwine the two, and it becomes y'all's movement, right? All of y'all out there who are fans of Charlie, we believe the same thing too. And here's how. And it became a bridging of the two. And I don't know, I don't love that. But anyways, so JD Vance goes on to say he flew out to Utah to meet Erica, Charlie's wife, and Charlie's mother. Again, it kind of felt like, and I could just be reading too into this, but it kind of felt like he was saying this was the first time he met Erica. Now, maybe it was the first time you met his mother, but it did sound like it was the first time he met Erica. And I was like, if that's your friend, why is this your first time meeting his wife? I don't know. That's what the phrasing of the sentence sounded like. Again, I could totally be off base on that, but that's how it sounded as he was speaking. It also could be because he's reading this teleprompter and there's just no emotion in his words. So it just felt a little like detached from what people are claiming is such a close relationship, right? And he keeps going on. He describes Charlie as a husband and a father. And he said, in knowing Charlie and in Charlie's passing, this has now taught him how to be a better husband and father. Again, really weird, because if you've known Charlie for years, if you've known him for years, if this is your very dear friend, why in the world would his death be the thing to make you say, I should be a better husband and father? I would assume that me knowing my friend for years and seeing how great he is as a husband and father, that would have long been something that was inspirational to me. It wouldn't be his death that now it's inspirational to me, and now I want to be a better husband and father. I would assume you would have wanted that way before his passing. But okay. And, he goes on to say that as we listen to this podcast for the next 2 hours, they're going to talk with senior officials from the White House in order to honor his legacy against this left-wing extremism. Again, where in this is there a left-wing extremism? This whole intentional, forcing a divide is getting old. I will be honest. It is getting old. At this point, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel as though a lot of Americans, okay, are at the point of we know both sides are playing a game, okay? Both sides are playing a game and we're tired of both sides, right? We're kind of getting to a point where we're somewhere in the middle of understanding what's going on and understanding that on each side we're going to be lied to and yada, yada, yada. So in this particular instance, where do you get this left-wing extremism from? Where? I completely missed it. And I feel as though, again, not to go off onto a conspiracy, I feel as though they say these things to trigger people to keep that divide there. I said the same thing, I believe it might have been last episode or the episode before about Trump, and just always throwing out these words to rage bait people and to get them upset and to get them riled up, to be mad at something that's really not there, nor is it happening. Like, just a little side note, because I really want to get into this, okay? What I found is that people who are usually, they want to claim they're a part of Make America Great Again, they're big Trump supporters, they're big Trumpers and things like that, they're usually a little agitated, right? They come across a little bit agitated. And when I see that, I'm always confused because I'm like, why why are you agitated? Like, you don't do nothing to these people, you don't say nothing to these people, but there's always a slight bit of agitation. And I get it also from the left too, where like if you're extremely left, right? There's always this slight bit of agitation. And it confuses me because it's like I don't know if you think people are just out and about in their daily lives running up to people and like berating them, but it's not happening. I'm going to be honest with you. It's not happening. So you can walk around with your Make America Great Again full gear. You can have your Trump flag big as hell in your yard. You can, do what you want as long as you're not like hurting somebody or like being disrespectful. People are just gonna walk by you. But there's always this need to feel like I wish somebody would say something to me because I need to say something. And it's like, why do y'all ever encounter that? Like, I just encounter this energy about people who like constantly want you to say something when they like name drop Trump or like name drop, someone on the left or something about, you know, not wanting to be right wing or conservative or whatever. There's just like this weird like agitation. Let me give you a story and then I'll jump back into my notes, but it just puzzles me, and I think them doing this and always, saying left wing extremism and, all say the other things that he said, but all of those things, it feeds into that agitation that people have where they want to be provoked so they can get out all of this built up angst that doesn't exist in your real average ass life. It just does not. Okay, let's be real. It does not. So, quick story. I was at a restaurant. It's me and another person. We're at the bar. Two black people sitting at the bar. Um, the establishment, I wouldn't say is like heavily like a place where it'll be racist, like black people, we know, but it was not that. The town we were in wasn't that. So we're sitting there. Bartender's great, lovely woman. We're talking to her about what we're getting off the menu, the drinks, yada, yada, yada. So this man is sitting on the other side of the person that I'm with, and he's like intentionally like moving around and like shifting his body and like scooting his chair and like moving his hat and stuff like that. And it got to a point where it was like, oh, he wants to be seen. If you're black, when people want to be seen. So we paid him no mind. And then he starts getting loud like, well, yeah, cause Trump. And it was like, oh, he wants to be seen. So um the person I was with ended up like saying something to the guy, and he was like, it wasn't anything about like politics or anything like that. I think it was something about like the seat, or it was something about the menu or drink. I don't know. It was something that was like almost to like disarm the guy because he clearly wanted us to like feed into whatever he had going on or whatever angst he felt, and he needed to like, it was pent up and he needed to get it out. And so he said something to disarm the guy. Guy shifts his hat forward, I guess to say like, I'm a Trump supporter. And we had no reaction. We just kind of looked at him, and like that was like there was quite literally no reaction. And so then the two women that he, was with, they were starting to realize what he was doing because it was so obvious, but we were just like flat, not giving him nothing. And Then I think, he kind of just like fizzled down, and we just like, turned our backs and went back to, our conversation and like waiting for our drinks and stuff like that. And so it was like the whole time. And so eventually he ended up leaving, and then we discussed it and was like, so he just wanted to fight. Like he just wanted us to either argue or be like, oh my God. But like an average American, bro, we don't care. But when you have those two extremes, right? On both sides, it's like they're waiting for someone to say something to them so they can just like let out and like probably regurgitate everything they heard on like Fox News or CNN, and be like, well, and it's like, no one cares. I'm going to be totally honest with you. No one cares, bro. Okay. So all you're doing, and like you want to like be pompous and like, no one cares. Quite literally, no one cares. And so when I hear the things that they say and I watch these things, it's a little upsetting because I know it's further enticing the people who are like on the extreme end of both sides to have that agitation and to be angsty and like ready to like argue with someone. And the whole time, people are like leaving from like being extreme to being like, wait, what's actually going on? But with all that being said, let's further go in. So I felt like, right, with them doing that, they're using Charlie's platform to further their own agenda. And when I say listen, go enjoy Candace's series. If you watch Candace's series, even if it's like a little clip, a few seconds, a reel, a TikTok, whatever, you understand when I say there. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but you understand. So that's what I felt like, and essentially they were doing. And he said part of the reason Charlie was killed was because of less left-wing extremism and like their need for violence. Again, that to me is not a factual statement. Like you are perpetuating a narrative that to me is not true. I think both sides of the extreme want to be violent. The people who are in the middle are like, y'all are crazy. It's not that deep. Like, let's look at the bigger picture here. But the people on the outskirts want to be extreme of both sides. Both sides on the extreme are violent because they've been fueled with all of your words. Again, like I just told in this story, they've been fueled with all of your words to feel that anger and that hatred that then will result into some type of violence. But for the average American, it's just not there. I don't know how else to articulate that. I don't believe that it's there. If I'm walking past a guy who has like a MAGA shirt on, I'm not going to turn around and be like, oh my God, you're the worst human because I don't care. I don't care. I'm sorry. I don't. I don't. So that was odd to me. And then, in them saying that the left wing is, very violent and things like that, I found it interesting because both sides in this Charlie Kirk assassination are trying to point out how it's the right or how it's the left, right? So if you want Tyler Robinson to be left wing, you'll say it's because he had a trans roommate who was his partner, boyfriend, I don't know. And then if you want it to be right wing, well, you'll say, well, his dad was clearly a Trump supporter. He wore this Trump costume. His dad, as they, I think, pointed out in some like text or something, he said, Tyler said his dad is like going further down into like the MAGA life or whatever. And so it's like, which side is it? Like, which side do you want us to take? And that's the part that people aren't getting. It doesn't matter what side you pick. There is an overall agenda. And that's the part that people are missing because they're being fueled with words that take you off of what is actually taking place. It's taking you off your square. And over here, we don't want to allow that to happen. Okay. So, to me, as I'm watching this, and we're discussing the sides and, oh, the left are so violent and this can't happen because of the left and blah, 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 blah. All I'm thinking is these people are bold. These people are bold. And when I say these people, whoever coordinated this JD Vance, hosting and sitting in for Charlie Kirk on his podcast and it being in the White House with senior White House officials, y'all are bold. It's bold because it's almost like we can show you what we're doing and what we're about, and you still won't pay attention. We can put it in front of you and you still won't pay attention. It's so bold. It's so like obvious how dumb they think we are, to the point that they quite literally sit in our face and tell us. He starts out almost 10 minutes in and says, our movement. When I heard the word our, I was like, wow. Like, y'all have done it. Y'all have done it. That's all I'm going to say there. So then the first person he sits down with is the Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen Miller. And again, I went because my whole purpose before I was like, okay, this is a bunch of nonsense. My whole purpose was to see who the speakers were going to be. And then just look up their relationship with Charlie. When I mean look up, I just want to see a picture. And if this is your very good friend, I want to see multiple. Okay. So they're speaking to this guy, and literally it was like he had 2, maybe 3 minutes to talk, because by the time he got a minute in, Charlie was like, okay, we got 30 seconds. So you're going to want to wrap this up. And again, I'm like, if this is supposed to be some type of honoring of his legacy, how are you, I don't want to say live, but like, live saying, okay, yeah, wrap this up in 30 seconds. How does that honor somebody? Not saying that you should let them be long-winded, but it was like they called people, this is what I felt. They called people and they're like, we need you to speak at this time, like, here's your time slots, and we need everybody to come through and speak. But remember, you only have X amount of minutes and you have these talking points to get through. And that's what we need you to do. Okay. We need you to get through your talking points and get it done in this amount of minutes. That's what it felt like to me. It did not feel like this genuine sit down and honor Charlie and be like, remember that one time when we had, like how Candace did, right? Showed the clips of like, I remember us in the car and we had to drive here, and backstage, I introduced him to Kanye and he loved Kanye and he's sending me pictures. It felt like a genuine friend talking about another friend. This felt like someone who I've met you at work. We spent a long time together in a short amount of time. We spent a long time together, but it was a short amount of time, right? And now you've passed away, and I know there's a bigger agenda, but I'm going to sit down and just talk about that and hopefully get through it while also getting through our talking points. It did not feel like a friend honoring a friend. It just didn't. It literally didn't. So while I'm listening to Steven try to make it sound like this was just a good old buddy, I do my Googles. There's one picture of these two together. One. The same picture they showed in the clip. I mean, in the podcast. It was quite literally the only picture. But this is your very good friend. You don't even have, like, if you guys were on this campaign trail and, he's at different stops and, he's when you're having a bad day, he's there for you. But y'all don't got no pictures together, no jokes, no inside jokes. Nothing? No? Okay, starting off strong, I guess. Then he goes on to say, and this was at 22 minutes and 28 seconds. He says there's festering violence on the left from becoming more and more mainstream. So JD Vance had asked them, like, how are we going to, or how are you helping to keep Charlie's movement alive, basically, like, in your role in the White House? And so he said there's festering violence on the left, and he's looking to keep it from becoming more and more mainstream. Huh? Again, where is this narrative of the left is violent coming from? And you have to look at who is the author of that narrative. And once you look at that, a lot of it makes sense. Because like I told you guys before, there's a reason why every time there's a shooter to some degree in this incident, even school shooters, there's always, oh, they're trans. There is always this connection to the left. But who is the author of that narrative? You just have to pay attention to those type of things. Because it sounds good. But, it sounds good to, the people who need to hear it, right? Your right-wing extremists. Sounds good to them. But again, who is the author? So to me, it just sounded so insincere. There was no sincerity in the message at all. And so he's going on and on and on. And then it was like he kind of ran out of words. So he said, and I quote, "God, I just love the man so much." You just didn't know what else to say. Like, you just didn't know what else to say. So what else do you say besides, "Oh, I just loved him"? Again, I just couldn't believe it. And as they were speaking, I don't remember which one, you guys. I was so over it at that point. I was like, oh, this is what is it? What's the phrase? A dog and pony show? Whatever the phrase is. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Like, this is a joke. That's the best way to put it. This is a joke. So one of them said that left-wing organizations are promoting violence. What organizations? Like, you cannot make these just open and like unfounded statements. Tell us, what organizations? Like, point them out, because I want to look into them. So if you know, let me know in the comments what organizations that are left wing are promoting violence, openly promoting violence. Not someone listens to it, because if that's the case, then everything you and Trump say is promoting violence to your right-wing fans. No? So let us know. Then, and I know this for a fact, that I'm pretty sure, actually, again, pretty sure, it was JD Vance who said doxing as like the violence. That gave me such a major eye roll, because both sides do that. Both of y'all get up there, especially on that x.com. Yeah, y'all get up there and y'all just dox people. That is what y'all do. Both sides. Both. So I don't understand what the message is here. And then they went and they spoke with a Taylor Butterwick, Andrew Colvett, and Kaylin Dorr. Andrew is the executive producer of the Charlie Kirk show. He did give me a little bit of emotion as he was speaking, but it seemed to be a little buttoned up. Like, okay, I am an EP. Let me just like tighten this up and like hold in what I could really be feeling. He kind of gave me that. The other two, it was just some more White House nonsense, to be honest with you. And then at that point, I tapped out. I said, yeah. No, I'm good. I'm totally fine. I don't need to watch anymore. But the most frustrating part was that it just, to me, was just a display of like um foolery, just straight tomfoolery, just real clown behavior that they don't believe, you know, the average American is going to see what is taking place right in front of them. It is, it's honestly so frustrating. That's kind of like, when my platform gets huge, right? Big, millions of subscribers, millions of views, I'm traveling, doing all of the things of the things. If either side comes out and, if something happens to me, it could be a car crash, anything, I don't know. And they come out and they're like, here's what Brittany's message was. And here's how it relates to the, Democratic Party. I would hope y'all out there as my family, you know what I'm saying? We cousins now, right? I will hope that y'all would be like, actually, mm-mm, mm-mm. That was not her message. I would hope that y'all would do that, because please don't take what I put all my sweat equity into, all of my blood, tears, heartache, long nights, that I put into this, and take it and run with it to further push what you want. Don't do that. Don't do that. That is real disgusting. Don't do that. And I would hope, as people who will grow to watch this platform, enjoy this platform, could stand up and say, that's actually not what she stood for. And we don't believe this is what she would have wanted. I don't care how big the person is, what title this person has. If you know it's wrong, then it's wrong. If you know it doesn't feel right in your spirit, then it doesn't feel right. It doesn't matter who sits in the chair or who fills in for the podcast. None of that matters if it doesn't feel right. And I think a lot of people know that, okay, this doesn't feel right. It doesn't make sense. But because of the name, because of the title, because of the status you think this person has, you're telling yourself, well, no, it's the vice president, so it must be. The president is doing this, so it must be. No, it is not. It is not. It's not okay. And we can't just ignore it because of their titles or their status. That's not okay to me. So this 2-hour display was pure foolishness. And to me, a little bit upsetting, because I could have totally understood if, maybe JD Vance sat down with his team, and was like, hey, everyone's saying these crazy things about Charlie. Let's sit down, at Turning Point. Let's go to Turning Point. Let's sit down with people. Let's hear the great things about Charlie. Let's explore his legacy. Let's talk about what they have planned. Let's talk about what they have coming up. Let's talk about his impact. Let's talk about the moments that we want to share. Let's share clips of, you know what I mean? That is honoring a legacy. Honoring a legacy is not sitting down with White House senior officials to do this. That's not honoring a legacy to me. Now, you out there, you may feel different. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. To me, honoring a legacy is sitting down with the people who dealt with Charlie day in and day out, who walked into an office of a company that he started, who, enjoyed him, who laughed with him, who probably, shared, sad moments, right? Like, oh, we wanted this, or oh, that happened, or what have you. Sit down with those people. Go to Turning Point USA. Show what he's built. Show what he spent his, life creating. Do that. Tour the building. Show his office. do something that really shows who he was as a person, especially if the internet is tearing him to shreds. Tearing him to shreds. Show that he was more than who they're saying he was. At least that's what Candace did. But instead, you go to your White House and your office, sit with your people to talk about our movement. That's a real interesting way to honor the legacy of a man that you say is your friend and a man that you say you've known for years. That is interesting. Meanwhile, that does not help the many millions of people on the internet tearing him down, talking about him, reducing his legacy, dishonoring his legacy. That does not then help them to say, oh, wait, maybe he was an honorable man. Maybe he did stand for more than the viral clips I've seen. No, what it says to them is, oh, nope, he probably was all the things I thought. Because look how they're honoring him. He probably was all the things I thought. And he's in, cahoots with them. And this is who he was. See? This is who he was. This is what he was about. There are probably people down at Turning Point USA who have hundreds of pictures with Charlie. But the first person to speak on his podcast about him was someone who has one. That's an interesting way to honor a man who you say is your friend. But I digress. Because what do I know? And it's interesting because even if you think about it in a real world practical way, when someone dies, what do? The first thing they do is they go to Instagram and they start going through their pictures and their archive and they're posting all of them, right? All of their pictures together, right? Their last text messages. That's what they do. But you got up here and did what? For your friend. That you're honoring his legacy for our movement. That's what you said. Almost 10 minutes in. Okay. I'll really move on now. So, for our next topic, okay, guys, this one also very interesting, but it also further solidified that I'm kind of right about the agenda that they're looking to push with Charlie Kirk's whole legacy that they wanted to honor as the face of it. So Pam Bondi, she sat down with someone. Child, I don't know. I saw the clip and I was like, girl, that's what it gave me. I'm at a point with them where it's like, there is no need for a deep dive because you're telling us right to our face. There's no need for a deep dive. You're telling us to our face. So she was facing backlash this week because she promised to target hate speech because she's saying hate speech is not the law. There's freedom of speech, our First Amendment, but that does not include hate speech. Cool. Now, when I read this, I'm reading the article, I'm looking around different places. And first thing that struck me, I will say, just a quick little side note. I always got to give you a little side note. I am so tired of when someone faces backlash, especially are high and powerful figures. The first thing they do is they release like a press release on X, Instagram, Twitter. Twitter is X, Facebook, things of that nature. I don't know why it rubs me the wrong way. It just does, Something happens, they say something wrong, the world reacts, the internet reacts, and they then go onto the internet to tweet or to post on their story some statement about it. I don't know why I don't like that, but I don't. I much rather you sit down, and I don't know if this is like an old fashioned way, but like sit down in front of a camera, record your little video, and send it out. Send it to your news channels, and that be that. But I feel like we're in a day and age where everyone wants to sit down with everyone and, you know, talk about things. And I'm over the social media press releases. I don't know why. They just rub me the wrong way. Maybe because I told you in the beginning, I'm not a social media girl. So I just don't love the idea of social media being the way that like government officials communicate with the public. I don't know. It's just like odd to me, you know? And it isn't just government officials, it's even celebrities, right? Celebrities kind of do the same thing. They get on social media and they just want to go live or, you know, share everything to their story. It's like, bro, get you a team, have them draft up what you need to post for the next month, 2 weeks, whatever your brand deals, whatever needs to go out. Maybe days where it's like, you know, a natural, that's what I would do, honestly. A natural, like, oh, I really run my, you know, like selfie or something like that. I really run my profile, and let them handle it. You don't even need to be on social media. You got too much money, too much things to do to sit and scroll on social media. But that's just my opinion. Now, Pam Bondi states, hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment. It's a crime for far too long. We've watched the radical left normalize threats, call for assassinations, and cheer on political violence. That era is over. Free speech protects ideas, debate, even dissent, but does not and will never protect violence. Okay, cool, interesting. Then Trump goes on to say, and he was responding to a question that he received on ABC, and he said, "We'll probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly. It's hate. You have a lot of hate in your heart." What? My thing is, that's a personal opinion. You want to be sensitive about what people say about you, and now all of a sudden you want to attack them and cancel them. That speaks more about you than it does about the person. You know what I mean? If they came out and said, I'm going to do X to you at this time, or, you know, I want to do X to you, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say it because God forbid, you know, they want to get to, you know, taking things down and stuff like that. But saying that they want to do an act of violence is like actually saying violence. Having an opinion on the way you rule the country is not an act of violence. It is not hate. Trump literally basically said, like, if I don't like you or I don't like what you say about me, then I'm going to go after you. Huh? And it's crazy because then we saw what happened to Jimmy Kimmel. Interesting that it was phrased as his comments about Charlie Kirk's assassination, but when you watch the clip, his comments were more about Donald Trump than they were about Charlie Kirk. When Trump just said, "We'll probably go after people like you because you treat me so unfairly." It's hate. Treating you unfairly is hate because I'm probably going to say things that you don't like, but I feel are opinion based and I can say. And all Jimmy Kimmel did was play a clip of Trump's own words. He said, "How do you feel in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death?" That was a question he was asked. And he said, "I feel rather good." Did you see the construction? Huh? Again, this is the man and the people you are telling me was friends with Charlie Kirk. You cannot actually be serious. Because that's what he said. And that's what was played. And then bam, now we get Jimmy Kimmel indefinitely suspended or off the air. Like, it's a weird thing, but it's like they are, and I was holding this for the end, they are after our speech. They are after freedom of speech. They are after what we say. To me, at first I was like, maybe it's just the big guys. But I purposely did a clip where I talked about Bibi Netanyahu and I put it out. Mind you, I'm not over here getting the views that Candace Owens is getting and getting the views that, any other person talking out, your Tucker Carlsons and your Megyn Kellys, even your Charlie Kirks are talking about Bibi Netanyahu in Israel. I'm not. I'm literally a little guy, okay? The littlest of the little guy. But most of my videos get above 1 view. So how ironic is it that the video where I literally put his face on the cover, I mentioned him in the description, and the thumbnail says "No peace ahead" with Bibi's face, gets 1 view. 4 days. I mean, let me go fact check myself real quick, just in case I'm crazy. Yeah, it's now been 3 days, 1 view. And the 1 view was probably me going back to make sure the video uploaded. So there isn't some fake conspiracy out there. That whole talking about Bibi in Israel, oh yeah. That is being censored. You can't say too much. Especially if we feel like it could be negative. No peace with a photo of Bibi, come on. Any genius can see there's probably not going to be a positive video. So that one's not going to be, that's going to be super suppressed. Okay. Because what do you mean 1 view? Like, it's just so blatantly in our faces that the agenda is speech. He just told you, we'll go after you if I don't like what you say about me. What? You said what? Yeah, let's make sure that doesn't happen again. That's what this is. And then they're going to try to intertwine what Charlie was about to what they want to say. See, the left silenced Charlie because he was speaking out against what they're doing. And that's why he was killed. So we must, Pam Bondi, Madam Attorney General, we must look at our laws and make sure that that doesn't happen. We have to look at the speech. We have to look at what people are saying because that can't happen again. Now, mind you, they're not talking about what we can't say because to them, they make the rules. Okay. To Trump, it seems like a very emotional, when I feel it, and that's what I want to happen type of thing. It's not like a hard answer. It's like today we don't want you to talk about that, so don't talk about that. Right now it's Israel and Bibi. We don't want you to talk about that, so don't talk about that. Because that's probably hate speech. And all of the other fun words that we're going to call you. But God forbid we ask the questions about all the times it happened in reverse. About all the times it was flipped and you decided that it was okay for certain speech to be used and to be said about other people on the other side that were killed. No matter what you agree with, because that's what I said, no matter what you agree with, you should just be respectful because a life was lost. But to you guys, well, what life are we talking about? Whose life are we talking about? Is it the homeless? Is it George Floyd? Is it Trayvon Martin? Is it Breonna Taylor? I mean, we could go way back. Is it Martin Luther King Jr.? Is it Malcolm X? Is it Fred Hampton? Like, we could really take this back if you want to, Pam Bondi, Madam Attorney General, JD Vance, Trump. I mean, we can really discuss what needs to be discussed if you want to. If we want to look at hate speech, then let's discuss both sides. Or does it only apply when it's your agenda? When your puppet master is pulling the strings, is that when it matters who's being targeted for hate speech? That's an interesting conversation. That's an interesting question. I would love to hear an answer. Because to me, it seems like one only matters when the puppet master says it does, and the others, they don't. Because what does it say in the Constitution about three? Oh, okay. I don't know. We just have questions, Madam Attorney General. Since you want to focus and blame and go after the left for hate speech, well, we just have questions. Because I do believe it was this week that, I heard it and I didn't want to look into it because I knew I would get angry and I knew I would just, again, that would just sit with me and I didn't want to carry that. But we should just be taking out the homeless. Is there a way to take that out of context? I just want to know. Is it only your martyrs that get assassinated and we should look into hate speech, or is it all? Because I hear what you say, but I don't believe you believe what you say. I believe you're strung up and you're following orders. And that's unfortunate because there are real people in the real world who will pay the consequence of you being unwilling to get from under those strings. How unfortunate. How unfortunate it is. And so I guess we'll see more cancellations of shows and more suppression of content as it relates to your puppet master and as it relates to your agenda. And unfortunately, you will continue to use this man's legacy as the face of an agenda that many Americans would not agree with. Because if you get rid or you tighten even a little bit the restraints on freedom of speech, then what's left? I don't know. I do wish you guys would answer, though, Madam Attorney General, Vice President Vance, President Trump. You got 2 hours to sit down and take over a podcast, so hopefully you have some time to just address that. Address tightening the restraints on freedom of speech, not gun laws. No. We would never do that. Let's just tighten the restraints on what people can say, especially if it goes against the one in charge. But that's all I'll say with that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Black and Classic Podcast. Every Sunday we sat down and we talk all things politics and pop culture. As always, drop a comment below. I will not. I'm open to your opinions, but all that debating going back and forth, if we're not going to be respectful, no. That there, I don't give a fuck about. Okay? And until next time, bye.